I picked up the phone to ask for help about 100 times from my mom, from somebody, but my ego kept me from doing it because I just thought maybe tomorrow I'll be able to fix it. Maybe tomorrow. And I couldn't. And so when I started helping people from a wellness perspective, first I was just sharing my yippee skippy happy world around fitness and wellness with Instagram. But after about 4 or 5 years of that, I was challenged by somebody, do you want to be an influencer for the rest of your life or do you want to be a thought leader? And that really struck me.
So what's your relationship with food? And listen, no judgment here. After all, you're listening to the girl who went to fat camp, remember? I've probably dated and broken up with every diet out there. Yeah, food was definitely my control. That is until I truly worked on my relationship with not only what I was putting into my mouth, but mindfully how it was impacting me, mind, body, and spirit. And when I took it one step further and became an integrative nutrition, holistic health coach, and mental health practitioner, I really saw how food could be my friend, a nourishing relationship, and crowding out not just the food, but even people who didn't align with me. We all want that, don't we? Now, listen, don't get me wrong. Stress still has me grabbing for the licorice every once in a while, which is totally my guilty pleasure. And there is still a box of Thin Mints in my freezer that I do get into an occasional staring contest with. All transparency. But I've made some habit changes that help me step away when things are about to go down. And I have people. Nourishing relationships are vital. It's one reason why I feel so fortunate to be in the health and wellness space. You just gravitate to like minds, support each other, and lean on one another. Because let's face it, life is about connection and community. We can't do it alone. Jamie Hess is one of those people. Fitness first brought us together, but living well and being aligned with a healthier energy is why I love this girl. And as someone who faced her own addictions, she's really made it her mission to support others on their journey with what she calls the big ask. So, on this episode of Holistically Speaking, you're going to get to know Jamie, and no doubt you will fall in love with her too. She not only opens up about her addictions, but what took her down that road. She shares more about what she calls the healthy Houdinis that show up and the mental gymnastics that you play when food is on the line. Plus, she answers your questions and is giving you the opportunity to join her Big Ask society of amazing women that cheer each other on every day. Hooray! So get ready for a healthy treat this week. Jamie, girlfriend, I am so excited to be talking with you. We have had such a lovely connection every time that we have met up, be it virtual, because I've only met you once in real life, IRL, and that was when we first came together, when you and Mom, Joan London, came on Daily Burn. Gosh, how long ago? I mean, how do we do the add up with a pandemic?
I know it's like, okay, it's 5 real years minus 2, carry the 4. I don't know. It was like 6 years ago. It was quite some time ago, maybe 5 years ago. It was quite some time ago. And I mean, Daily Burn was super fun. But when we were reconnected by a mutual friend, I didn't even make the connection until I don't even know, maybe until after we first spoke.
I think we made the connection because you pulled a photo of me in the background sweating while you're in the front looking all cute with your mom. Come on now.
Oh, girl, I think we were both a sweaty mess, but
it was fun.
Those were the days. But you know what? From the first time you and I hopped on the Zoom over this past reconnection time, it has just been, I feel like I know you from a previous life more than the Daily Burn. I mean, it's just been such a natural friendship. Yeah. And it's such an honor and such a joy to talk with you today.
It is absolutely a mutual feeling. I am honored to have you and hold space for you to share more about your journey, to just talk about what you got going on in your life and just how you're holding space for others. So Jamie Hess, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So let's get into it, girlfriend. I have a lot of big ask questions myself. For those of you who are just joining us and just part of this conversation, Jamie is somebody who, it's so amazing to be in the space with people, like you said, that you just feel like you connect with right away. But you do have your own story, and doing what you do now as not only an influencer, but a wellness mentor, a fitness and wellness expert, and someone who's just really created a space for herself. I'm curious, why? Why did you decide to do this? Leave a PR job and go into this line of work? And is it really work, you know?
I kind of like to get into my mic drop moment right away, right? So let's just like go for the throat. Are you ready? Okay. So I was an addict and an alcoholic, and that ran my teens and my 20s. My goal in life at that time was to be on the guest list. I just
Mm.
wanted to know the DJ. I just wanted to be on the list. I just wanted to be in the DJ booth. I just wanted to be somebody in New York City. And I made that happen. And that was part of like, it went from like my rave days, my club girl days in my 20s into this career in public relations. That was the fabulosity of the champagne and cocaine that you see on Sex and the City. I mean, it was really fun for years. And one of the things they say in recovery circles is usually it's fun, then it's fun with problems, and then it's just problems. And you can't go back once you've gotten to the third phase. So eventually my time in my addiction led me to the part where it was problems. And so I was going through this career in public relations, and in my late 20s, I actually took a sabbatical. I had been in and out of the rooms of 12-step recovery and different treatment and had been sober. And then I would relapse and I would have all of these issues because it was very hard at that point also to extrapolate the Jamie that was that party girl and that PR princess from like this new Jamie I was becoming because I was still working in PR. So it was important to like be at the nightclub until 6 a.m. with the girls from Page Six and like talking
Mm.
about the things and doing the thing. And so it was hard for me. I was trying to reconcile who I was, who was this new being. And so I finally like it totally imploded and I went to treatment in my late 20s. And then I got a few years sobriety under my belt. I came back to New York just around 30. And it was like life started over again.
Mm.
And what happened was I discovered boutique fitness. When I say boutique fitness, that means the Barry's boot camps of the world, the Soul Cycles, this fun new moment that fitness was having where hashtag FitFam was becoming a moniker. And what that meant was instead of going to a big box gym and just working out on your own, you were creating these micro communities of friends and people that you were working out with. And it was really special. And it was at that time then that I met my now husband, George. So George and I kind of built our relationship on the bedrock of fitness as the
Mm.
foundation. And so that was kind of concurrently becoming my new identity. All of the community and acceptance and the tribal rhythm that I had been searching for on the dance floor, I found on the floor of Barry's boot camp. And it became my new temple and it became my new passion. So as I was kind of discovering this, I started this Instagram account called NYC Fit Fam. George ended up proposing to me on that treadmill at Barry's boot camp. And that proposal went a bit viral. It was on Page Six in the New York Post. It was in a bunch of media. And that kind of set fire to this Instagram account that I had started of us just sharing our journey in the fitness world. So as I was continuing on in PR, I was still working in public relations. But I started having this other identity, this side hustle, if you will, which
Mm.
is what Instagram can become these days. And it was me as a wellness mentor and as a wellness influencer. And eventually, after several years of pursuing both, this side hustle became a full hustle and I was able to make it my career.
I'm amazed. You know what? I have to just stop for a moment because the one thing that gets me, and I've read this before about him proposing to you on the treadmill. Were you guys in motion? And I don't mean that
We
existentially.
actually stopped. We stopped. It was at the end of like a super hard sprint. And to be honest, it was so funny because you always think of your proposal as like, I'm going to know it's coming. I'm going to have my nails done. I'm going to have my makeup on. I could not have been grosser or sweatier or redder in the face. And it was the most perfect moment.
And I doubt he was on a knee at that
He
moment.
did. So no. So we finished our last treadmill sprint and everybody was going to stretch and the trainer was in on it. All of Barry's boot camp was in on it. My mom was there. They were hiding in the back. Everybody popped out. It was like a huge thing. And so the trainer for the class said, okay, everybody get to your bench for stretching. And George, get down on one knee. And they started playing our song, which it all happened so fast. I was like, what's even going on? And I knew it was a song that never would have been played at Barry's boot camp because it was a very niche EDM song called The Beating of My Heart. And all of a sudden in one moment, when my mom and my sisters popped into the studio, it became clear what was happening.
I love it. It's such a different story. I can see how that could go viral, you know? And the fact that you two have built this life together where you're kind of this power duo, you are a power duo in the fitness world and becoming influencers together as a team, because we see so many influencers out there doing their own thing. But it really goes back to the sense of community and how you're even going back to what you mentioned about building those micro gyms and the tribes. And we're seeing all that. And look, that's how you and I met, you know, the Daily Burn background of being part of a membership, a community of people who are supporting one another. So here you are with the ultimate support being who is now your husband. And you've thrived in this way. You've thrived in this way. But you yourself have your own battles that you've gone through prior to even George coming into the picture, like you said, going back to addiction. And how has it been since? Like, how has your journey been in recovery with this environment around you that you've created?
Oh, Hillary, it was so painful before. It was so painful to be stuck in what I was stuck in alone. And I'll never forget those last few years, because what happened at the very end, and I share this very candidly in case it might help somebody. What happened in the last few years was like the club drugs were over. I was done doing the crazy party drugs. I had moved on to, or I had relapsed with, because this is where such a gray area exists, prescription drugs and like the Adderalls of the world, because I convinced myself I needed that type of a thing to work harder and be successful. And that last year was so lonely because the party was over. It was me, myself, and I in my apartment, stuck. And I think back to those days, which were, I picked up the phone to ask for help about 100 times from my mom, from somebody, but my ego kept me from doing it because I just thought, maybe tomorrow I'll be able to fix it. Maybe tomorrow. And I couldn't. And so when I started helping people from a wellness perspective, first I was just sharing my yippee, skippy, happy world around fitness and wellness with Instagram. And that was great. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with that. It resonated. I was sharing motivational tips, what works for me, new workout methods, recipes, plant-based eating. But after about 4 or 5 years of that, I was challenged by somebody, you know, do you want to be an influencer for the rest of your life or do you want to be a thought leader? And that really struck me. I love being an ambassador for brands, but this person, it was, by the way, our friends at T Market Media, they looked at me and they said, you're doing a great job, but like, do you want to be holding up toothpaste when you're 50 and saying, buy this toothpaste, or do you want to be changing lives?
I get that. Yeah.
And I was like, well, I really can't argue with that. Now, concurrently, what was happening was women were reaching out to me via DM on Instagram. You know, what's really interesting, Hillary, is that people used to come up to my mother. You know, my mother is, of course, TV journalist Joan London. She was on Good Morning America for almost 20 years. And people used to come up to her in the restroom of restaurants, of concerts, of sporting events when I would be with her. And they would, women would just start oversharing. They would just tell her their deepest, darkest secrets and I would always say, Mom, what gives? That was so weird. And she would say, you know, Jamie, I come into people's homes at a very personal time of day and they feel like they know me. Well, that's what Instagram has done for me. People feel like they know me. And so they tell me their pain points. And what that allowed me to do was crowdsource hundreds, if not thousands of women, what they were going through. And women were coming to me directly and saying, Do you do coaching? Can you help me? I'm stuck. I've been yo-yo dieting for the last 30 years. I've been stuck in the pain of binge eating in secret. I've had shame. I've had secrets. My jeans don't fit. I don't feel good in my body. I want to be around for my kids or my grandkids. And they've been struggling with this since they were 13. And now they're 40, 50, 60. Do you know what a long time that is?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a long time.
Yeah.
And I started saying, I can help these women because also I think back to that time when I was stuck in my addiction and my disease, and it's the same damn thing. These women just have the maybe I'll be able to fix it tomorrow syndrome for the last 30 or 40 years. What a wasted life of doing those mental gymnastics. And I realized if I could help one woman through teaching some of the same stuff I learned in recovery circles, peer-to-peer support, the use of a sponsor, the use of accountability, the use of basically 12-step tactics in getting vulnerable, getting honest, and breaking through, if I was able to apply that to diet, well, I could really help people. And so that's what I did when I created the Big Ask method.
Yeah. Yeah. We want to talk about that because with the Big Ask, there are so many questions that we or I or you have every day. And those of you listening, you have every day. We ask ourselves, am I on the right journey? Am I making the right choices? If I make a mistake, do I start over? And we're constantly asking ourselves questions. And when we do that, or when I do that, when you do that, when you listening do that, sometimes it's overwhelming because seeking the answer when we're seeking the answer can be a difficult task, and we need the support needs to be there, So the Big Ask, let's get into that. What are you providing for those you hold space for?
I started the Big Ask with the understanding that if people just wanted a diet program, they can just download a diet program off the internet. I mean, there's plenty out there. I don't need to. Do I have a nutritional roadmap and a fitness protocol? Yeah, I have all of that. But more importantly, my coaching program, the Big Ask, is really more based around cognitive behavioral therapy. It's more based around essentially a remodeling of 12-step recovery. It's based around hyper-local accountability. So what do I mean by that? Okay, so I had done accountability programs myself. I had participated in them. Specifically, I had done a few. I had done Teddy Mellencamp's program. She's one of my best friends. I will always give credit that she was one of my early educators in some of the accountability models. What I do is different than her, but she has a great program called All In. And but I'd done a few different programs like that. They were great. They worked. They really worked. What I found happened was eventually I graduated and then I was still left with myself. And I was trying to figure out, how do I find a sustainable model of this for me? So what I started doing was taking the lessons I had learned in various accountability programs, because I completely was aligned with the fact that accountability is the differentiator. Look, the diet's not broken. The diet's not broken. The problem is we don't stick to the diet, right? All the diets work. People always ask me in media interviews, like, what's the hot new diet? What's going to make me lose, 30 pounds in 10 days this month? What's the hot new thing? Well, those are clickbait buzzwords. None of that is actually real life. They all work. That's the spoiler alert. All the diets work. You just don't stick to them. That's the problem, right? So how do I help people stick to them in a way that actually is sustainable?
Yeah.
So I started taking some of the accountability framework that I had learned and instilling it in my own home. And what I mean by that is I would take a look at my week and I would look at where my biggest stumbling blocks were. It's not just like, what's my trigger food? Oh, it's, it's nuts. I overeat cashews. Every time I eat cashews, I go back for 6 more handfuls. Right?
You do?
Okay. So that's like, totally. That's one of them.
I'm a nut freak.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Nut
The struggle
freak.
is real.
And also nut butter. The struggles are all. I always say with nut butter, I need the nut butter police, okay? Because I will scoop the proper amount of nut butter, which is 2 tablespoons, which we all know is like 180 calories, which is a great snack, but 6 of those is not a good snack. That's like your entire calories for a day. And how many of us put the spoon back in 6 times because it's very delicious. It's a very palatable food, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I started saying to my husband, okay, couple things. So like I have my snack between 10 and 11 a.m. I would like you to help me. You're going to hold the nut butter. And then when it's time for the snack, I say, hey, babe, can you come out with the nut butter? You watch me take 2 scoops. I put it in my bowl and you take it back and put it wherever you put it in your office on the secret shelf that I don't need to know about. Or I think about what I do in the afternoon. Maybe I like to have like my 6 whole wheat crackers with a little hummus, or I like to have whatever I like to have, but I don't need to be dipping back into the pantry, in and out, in and out, in and out. So we literally put a lock on our pantry. I did it especially because when he's out of town, which he travels for business quite a lot, I struggle with binge eating. Okay. So some people say, oh my God, you put a lock on your pantry. That's so extreme. Is it? Because I think binge eating disorder is extreme and I'm tired of doing it. So you know what's not extreme? Having someone help me. Having someone help me eat at the time of day when I intended to eat and not do mental gymnastics at the time of day I didn't intend to eat. So my brain is free to do other things. I don't have to think, should I, shouldn't I? Should I, shouldn't I? Drink your damn tea that you made, do your work during the day, hang out, don't be stuck with the pantry calling your name. And when it's snack time between 3 and 4 in the afternoon, my husband helps me out with my snack. I don't feel that that's very extreme. I actually feel that's smart. And so these are the types of tactics. Now, that's a very simple example, but again, this is a simple program for complicated people. So all of the techniques are simple. Some of them might include, hey, you know what I'm terrible at? Keeping my hands off my kids' leftovers when I clear their dishes.
Oh,
You know what I
that's a big
suck
one.
at? Oh, you know what I
Yeah.
suck at? Scooping their ice cream without taking 6 scoops for myself. I suck at it. So if maybe my husband and I can divide up chores in a different way. I can say to him, you know what, babe, I really can't do cleanup and dessert. It's like freaking me out because whenever I end up in the kitchen alone after dinner, I'm overeating. How about I do, the dishwasher and some other afternoon chores and you help out with serving or cleaning up the kids' dinner. And we trade off. But instead of being too embarrassed to admit to him that that's a problem, I can just admit that I'm a perfectly imperfect human. I struggle and could he help me? So that's what the big ask is in a nutshell. I empower and teach other women how to do just that.
And I love these ideas, like the food, the lock on the pantry, that's huge. And not shaming ourselves from stepping away and being okay saying, I don't need this right now, and asking for help, right?
Yeah.
The big ask and asking for help. Great if you have a partner like you do. You have a wonderful supportive partner like George. But what about those who are living alone? Maybe the single mom out there. How do those women or even men, how do they garner that support when you're not there 24/7?
It's a great question. And by the way, I have lots of single moms. I have lots of widowed, beautiful, gorgeous goddesses. I have all sorts of women in my program that do or do not have somebody in their home. There are multiple techniques. So I'll give you an example. In my early days in 12-step recovery, I had a sponsor. That sponsor helped me stay sober. She did not live with me, right? She was not my babysitter. She was not my sober coach. She was my she is to this day, 20 years later, my sponsor. Now, some of the things that she did with me are the same types of things that I teach other women to do. One technique is called bookending. Okay. So say that you're going to the grocery store. Ooh, the grocery store, right? The scary grocery store.
Right.
If you are somebody who's dealt with food compulsions in the past, it does feel like that. I mean, it can have the same endorphin rush as going to your drug dealer's house if you're a drug addict. Because when I would go into the grocery store, I would often say, I'm just going to get in to get the fixins for dinner. I'm going to get some kale and I'm going to get some tofu and I'm going to get some garnishes. And the next thing I know, I would be circling the frozen food section like a hawk. And one of my binge foods used to be ice cream. And I would go past the ice cream section and I would just look. I would say, I'm not going to buy anything. I just want to see what new flavors they have, right? I just want to be a looky-loo. I'm going to window shop. And then I would look and, oh, that one, Oh, it's made with oat milk. We get those healthy Houdinis, right? It's like the greenwashing. It like kind of pretends to be healthy. And I'm like, well, maybe. And I start convincing myself that, I start doing the math on the servings and the calories and the sugar and the next thing I know, I have 1 pint, but then there's a couple of flavors that look interesting. So maybe I have three that I put in my basket. And then what would happen, Hillary, for me historically is I would go home and I would just try to have one serving, and sometimes all 3 pints would end up gone. These are in my early days. Okay. So, what I had learned from that was the grocery store is a very dangerous place for me to go. Whether I'm hungry, not hungry, it doesn't really matter. We have a phrase in recovery circles: if you hang around a barbershop long enough, you're going to get a haircut. Okay. So, if a food addict goes into a grocery store and doesn't have a plan or an accountability buddy, that can really take a quick left turn. So one of my techniques is bookending, where I would just text my accountability partner, hey, I'm going into a high risk location. Um, I'm intending to get these items. I have a grocery list. Maybe you send a screenshot or a picture of that. And I'm going to text you if I feel wonky in there, but mostly I'm just going to text you on the other end to let you know I made it out safe with my intended groceries. Now,
And
are
not
they in
three
there with
pints of
you?
ice
They're
cream.
not. Yeah. I mean, look, could you lie? Sure, you could, but I find that people don't. Once you put it out there,
Mm.
I want to be held accountable. I want to do the right thing. That tends to really bolster your integrity. And it does something to your psyche that gives you that little extra oomph that helps you make it out safely. So by and large, just having the support of somebody knowing, hey, I'm on the struggle bus, but we're going to make it through this together can be very empowering.
Absolutely. And I get that even with the clients that I'm supporting. I mean, the habits can change. And sometimes the habit, one of the worst habits to break is knowing that you can break a habit, right? Getting yourself in the mindset like, this is impossible. I've lived this way my whole life. How can I possibly stop doing this? But knowing that someone supports you and believes in you and understands that habits can change. I mean, the work I do, you can change your thoughts, moods, and behaviors and your habits, but the first step of anything is awareness that you have a habit to change. And then the support comes,
And
and then
vulnerability.
and the vulnerability, and also the courage to say, I can do this. I know I'm not doing it alone. And being vulnerable enough to say, I have a problem, but I know there's a solution. And it's beautiful that you're able to do that,
It's
and you're able to
beautiful.
incorporate your own life and everything that you've been through into this. So do you actually still have those battles with the food shaming?
Oh, absolutely. All the time, every day, which is why I'm a good coach. And I'm sure you are the same
Mm,
way. I will never not share my struggle. I will never not share when I have a blip, a slip, because of course I have them too. And the greatest power is from learning from them in real time. So I'll come on I do a weekly Zoom with my boot campers. I have the big ask. The big ask is one-on-one coaching. So I have one-on-one clients where I'm like super high touch in their pocket all day. And then I have an 8-week boot camp where we meet every Saturday on Zoom at 2 p.m. And then they also have like daily accountability in a WhatsApp group. And then I also have the Big Ask Society, which is like my $29 a month monthly membership platform, which they get access to like something that's a little more generic, but also very, very helpful and
mm.
informative and cool. It's just a little bit different. It's not so customized in the coaching. So when I get on this weekly Zoom with people at 2 p.m. on Saturdays, I'll often have a story to share of something that came up for me that week. And then I'll ask if anybody else has anything to share, because sometimes when I say like, let's be real, what came up this week, who has a struggle, everyone just looks at me. Oh, I don't know. No, everything was perfect for me. And then I'll share something bad that happened with me. And all of a sudden someone's like, oh, actually that happened to me too.
Hand goes up,
You know?
right?
Right,
Suddenly everyone's
right.
like, well, come to think of it, this thing happened.
Yeah, look,
Because
I
we're all
mean,
human,
if we
right?
were we're all human. I mean, if we did it perfectly, nobody would need a program, right? So it's like that's just nonsense to think that anybody would do it perfectly. And the problem is I have a lot of perfectionists in my program, as I am a perfectionist myself. And perfectionism is tricky because then when you mess up, you get a case of the efforts. You're like, oh, I already screwed it up. Now I'll just go all the way off the rails and the diet will start perfectly again on
Mm,
Monday. When the ninja level relapse prevention is being able to mid relapse say, okay, I effed up, but now I can right the ship.
mm. Yeah. I felt that. It's true. We being able to take a step back and own it, but also know it's okay to not be okay. And
Mm,
tomorrow's a new day. Start over.
tomorrow's a new day.
Tomorrow's a new day.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Which is similar to how the 12-step program works. It's one day at a time, right? When we look too far ahead, it can mess us up. Yeah. Yeah. I've noticed that.
Absolutely. Because also when I first went into 12-step recovery, I remember saying, I was a 23-year-old young woman. And I remember saying to my sponsor at that time, um, I'm sorry. So you're telling me, because I was a drug addict, I did not consider myself an alcoholic. By the way, I 100% was, but I was 23, so I didn't get it. I thought I was going in for my drug of choice, which was kind of, destroying my life. And I was like, well, I don't know, drinking. I don't know that I'm never going to drink again. And I said, so you're telling me that I have to abstain from everything, all mind and mood altering substances. So at my wedding, I can't have a glass of champagne. And she said to me, oh, I didn't know you were engaged. And I said, well, I'm not. She goes, oh, do you have a boyfriend? I said, well, I do not. She said, well, honey, why are you worried about your wedding? And by the way, who can get married in your state? Why don't we save your life today and worry about your wedding tomorrow? By the
Mm.
time I got to my wedding 10 years later, you couldn't have paid me $1 million to have a glass of champagne. I was there in my beautiful, sober self to marry this man I loved. I could care less about a glass of champagne. But the 23-year-old me couldn't understand that there is a world in which I would not care about champagne. Just the same as women who come into my program could not imagine a world in which a birthday could be celebrated without cake. But I promise you, that world could exist, but you don't even have to worry about it today because that's not what we're talking about today.
And honestly, the ultimate high when you actually did get married and you and George had that day and now you have this life, that's the ultimate high,
It's the ultimate high.
right?
When
And it's
when you've been abusing like drugs and alcohol so long, when you finally feel sober, you feel higher than you ever could have when
yeah.
you were in the absolute despair of drugs. You just don't even know that plane of existence is available to you until you reach it. And it's the same with food.
Mm, yeah. As someone who battled that myself, I mean, I went to fat camp. Okay. I went to like the fat camp, the one that was actually on the TV show for a number of years, the reality show,
Mhm.
that
Yep.
one in PA. And I remember that there was a lot of the programs have changed a lot. And even when I've done QVC, which you have as well, supporting these different kind of dietary programs, they can go so far, or the camps can go so far, or the one-on-one checking in at a wellness center can go so far. It's really knowing that you have someone, like you said, in the sustainable part of your program, because it's a lifestyle, right? And people get very triggered by the word diet, because diet sounds like you're taking something away from someone, right? And how is your feeling towards that word, diet?
Okay, I have a lot of feelings towards this conversation in general. So here's what happened. Here's what's a little problematic, if you
Yeah.
ask me. Diet culture has been so villainized,
Mm,
and I understand. I do understand. However, the word diet has been erased from every public, Hearst and Condé Nast, they
mm,
all have a top-down policy to scrub the word diet from their pages. I get comments and trolls all the time on NYC Fit Fam on my Instagram. When I share about the big ask, they say, "Didn't anyone tell you that diet culture is passé?" And meanwhile, we have a 62% rate of obesity or being overweight, according to the CDC. Okay. Our entire country is like one maple glazed donut away from a heart attack or a stroke. We have a massive health epidemic. Okay. So, who is holding space for people who need to have a health journey? I don't care what you call it. Diet culture, and the reason that's been villainized is because everybody wants a get thin quick scheme. It's what a lot of people have suggested I do in my own marketing. Oh, Jamie, with the big ask, you have to tell people they can eat bacon every day and lose weight, and they can do this and lose weight. I'm not telling anybody any of that. That's nonsense and it's garbage, okay? I'm telling people if you're looking for a fad diet, you've come to the wrong place. This is just not I'm sorry if it's not sexy. What I am bringing to you is something entirely different. But what I'm also saying is the new diet is not a diet at all. It's standing up in front of somebody else and saying, I need help. So
mm.
these are two different conversations. However, unfortunately, it all gets lumped into one. So for me as a brand building exercise, I have a weight loss and health program at a time when that topic has never been less sexy in the American vernacular lexicon. However, it does not change the fact that people need help. So I will continue to give it no matter what trolls want to say to me.
And you know what? There's something I heard that Mel Robbins said. It's if you don't have the haters, and I think this is actually Mel and actually Hank had this conversation, Hank Norman from To Market, give them a shout out,
Yeah.
that if we don't have the people that are in opposition or the haters, then we're not doing our job, because then we're just fluffy and doing everything to follow the norm, right? Not the norm, but the norm, right? The normal. So having that friction creates the space for us to just be authentic to ourselves and those we're supporting. So high five to you for that, because we can't just fluff it out. We can't just be like that, because we're not serving anyone by doing that. And then before you know it, it's another diet phase that's passed, right? And nobody's getting help and support. So
It's very, very boring. A fluffy world. Yeah, a fluffy world is very boring. And also like, look, I think the reason I resonate and why NYC Fit Fam has always been attractive to people is because I kind of toe the line between saying you have to give yourself grace and stop beating yourself up for not having been able to do it before, but also you got to put on your big girl panties. You know, it's like if nothing changes, nothing changes. So I would love to tell you that you could like eat bacon and just lose 30 pounds. It's garbage. So I'm sorry. It's just not how things are. And if you do want to change, then you're a human who can do hard things. I promise you.
I want to bring something up with you that I'm sure you've had this question asked a number of times. You are a beautiful, fit woman. And to look at somebody like yourself, there could be an assumption that you're healthy, mind, body, and spirit. So how do you approach that kind of question coming at you? Like, you're just a skinny girl, a pretty skinny girl, a daughter of a famous television personality and news anchor. How in the world do you have problems, Jamie Hess? And who are you to tell me?
What a good question. Well, the first answer is because I'm a human being who lives on the planet Earth. That's number one. The second thing is I would encourage you to go look at like any of my big ask like story highlights where I share some of my before and after pictures, because I used to be quite heavy. I think some of those before pictures also have me heavy and smoking a cigarette in some sort of, mental and moral disarray. I come from a very dark place. I was very, very much imperfect as a young person. And I think part of it might have been because I was a byproduct of a famous mother. A lot of children of celebrities tend to have issues. And I think it's because we are a little confused with, attention, positive versus negative attention. I was trying to my mother is an American icon. And so I was trying to find my own space in this world. And so sometimes I just went sideways with that. I was just doing the best I could with the information I had at that time in my own psyche. But know better, do better. So as I learned and as I grew, I use that to inform what I have done professionally and personally. And that's literally how I molded my program.
I love that. Really beautiful way of sharing that. Thank you for being so vulnerable yourself. My girlfriend, you are a sister now. I love chatting with you. It's just every time I talk to you, and I say this all the time on this podcast, that I feel like every guest I have becomes a masterclass in learning for me too. We don't know it all. How can we all know everything? So thank you for just sharing your gift and continuing to share it, not only in this space and with my listeners, but with yours as well. So just wanted to share that. And also on that note, thank you to Squadcast for holding space and creating this place for us to have this conversation. And if you're touch moved and inspired by this conversation, consider sharing it with one person that you think might need a little extra support, or might be interested in finding out more about the big ask and Jamie and what she provides and how she shares. And just be and pay it forward. I mean, that's what life's all about. So moving on to some other areas I'd love to touch on. Basically, I mean, you also are a podcaster yourself. You have a podcast that's extremely successful called Off the Gram with two beautiful women, one of which I've actually had on the podcast. And I've met also through Daily Burn, which is Megan Murphy. And how did you fall into that?
I love my podcast. It makes me so happy. It's just this like fun passion project that then also became another side hustle, like that just is a baby that just, I don't even know, just took off and grew. And it's so fun to see this baby grow. So it's so funny. I was walking home from a photo shoot. Okay, so backing up, I was a publicist, like I told you earlier, for a long time. And being a publicist, I always have like a marketer's mindset. And it had occurred to me for some time, like, well, I have so many friends who are influencers. Like we're all like on the yoga mats next to each other at all these events. And wouldn't it be powerful if we kind of banded together and like maximized efficiencies for brands? Like maybe we kind of brought ourselves to brands together and said, hey, if you hire all four of us, we'll produce content, we'll collaborate on content together. So you're getting like multiple eyeballs. I'd had this idea for a while. And I was like, we could do panel discussions for these brands. So that had been like this little percolating idea in the background of my brain. And I was doing a photo shoot, actually for athleisure brand and Mind Body, which is like the booking platform for fitness classes. This was like a while back. And we were doing a photo shoot in Central Park. And as we were walking to the subway, it was myself, Heidi Christopher, Christine Bibbo, who's NYC Pretty, and another gal named Ali Tish. At the time, she was the Sweat Life. She just has now changed her handle to Ali Tish, and she's an amazing influencer. And the four of us thought, well, this is a good idea. We should do this thing together. But wait, what if we like did it as like a podcast? And what if we kind of like tied it to like being on Instagram, but also having a thing or two to say off the gram, like we're all ladies of a certain age. We're all in our 40s. We all have kind of like institutional or organizational pedigrees around health and wellness. I had been on the front lines of the category for, 17 years with being a health and wellness public relations executive. Heidi was a yoga celebrity. Christine was like a lifestyle expert. And then Allie was like a fitness personality herself. So we started the podcast. Allie had to drop out because she got a big important job and had to move. So we thought, who could be our fourth person? And we brought in Megan. And Megan was actually at launch. So she's been with us since episode 1. Christine did the whole first season with us. She ended up stepping back to do some other stuff. And so the dust settled and it was me, Heidi, and Megan Murphy, who is the editor-in-chief of Women's Day magazine. The three of us bring forward, I think why it's fun is like we each have this different kind of character archetype. Heidi is like the green mama. She is like super clean, non-toxic, yoga goddess, yada, yada. Megan's like, I eat hot dogs and I own it. You know what I'm saying?
And she's a firecracker.
And she's a firecracker. And she's this amazing like journalist, powerhouse editor with these great kids that lives this fun life. She's a DIY expert. She's like the every mom that you want to be, but like cool. And then there's me, and I kind of fall in the middle, but I also am kind of this archetype of like, I really love business. I'm like the hustler mentality. So as much as Heidi is like, let's set boundaries and have self-care. I mean, she's also a hustler, but she's very good at that. I'm like the type A, I have this other mentality. And so I think they all shine through in their own beautiful ways. And then every single week we get to interview people in the front lines of health and wellness. It is so exciting. As you know, Hillary, from being a podcaster, like you just said, every week is a masterclass. We've interviewed people from Ariana Huffington to Catherine Schwarzenegger-Pratt, Carson Kressley, Neve Schulman, then people like Rebecca Minkoff, the top doctors, the leading doctors and gynecologists, and, Daphne Oz, and just icons of wellness and just different personalities. I mean, today's episode is not when you're launching this episode to your listeners, but the one that came out for me today when we're recording this was on rhabdo, which is like the CrossFit disease that people probably don't even know that people are like getting this terrible illness. So we're bringing forth information that's really helping people, and it feels so good. And also it allows me to get this like best in class information every week on sleep, nutrition, wellness that I then get to bring back to my big ask clients, which is such a special place to be as a conduit.
Yes, nailed it. Love that part. Like right there, that goes back to the masterclass. I love Off the Gram. I love the ladies involved, all three of you. And, as someone who my focus is always on the integrative nutrition and mental health side of things, I feel like I can incorporate and learn so much from every week of those who share, much like yourself, on this podcast, and then share it with my clients, because and just in life, like maybe it's a tip I use for myself, right? Maybe it isn't something I share with a client or in our programs that we have. It's just taking the knowledge and deciding, what do I want to do with this? This is really good, valuable information that's being shared, these little nuggets of goodness. How do I want to execute it going forward. So it doesn't hurt to have more information than make an executive choice of how you want to use it, right? Yeah, it's a fun podcast.
Absolutely. It's a fun place to be, and that's what my own mom did for all
Yeah.
those years, you know? Like, I always say, like, I know what letters I do and don't have after my name. Like, I'm not a registered dietitian. I'm not a certified fitness professional. I just happen to be a curator of information, and that's a really cool place to be too, you know? To
Yeah.
kind of steward the information and then merchandise it back to people.
And by the way, the LMNOPs after the name, of which I do have some, doesn't always mean that you have the knowledge and the information and the ability to share just because somebody else doesn't. I'm
Yeah.
not always one that's going to gravitate to the LMNOPs, right? Because it's
Yeah.
really you and what you share. And I don't know about you, but I feel like I learned so much from my clients. Like they mirror back so much.
Absolutely.
Like we are our clients in so many ways, aren't we? You know?
Of course. And that's also bringing it all full circle to, recovery, rooms of recovery, which is where I got so much of my knowledge, which is we can only keep what we have by giving it away.
Mhm.
Somebody who has one day sober isn't a place to help somebody who's just coming in the room. So if you have one day of like knowledge and grounding and foundation, you have something to give back. And then we just share our experience, strength, and hope. And by doing that, we help others. So there's something to be said for that. You don't have to be a clinical, like a psychologist to help somebody else. You can have learned experience and knowledge.
And definitely that's the mirroring right there. And when you share that, especially with those that you support, I believe, this is my opinion, that it empowers them. Oh, I was able to help someone who I'm actually going to for support and they're learning from me. And suddenly you're putting this empowerment in their hands to realize you're human and the person that's supporting you also deals with everyday battles. I'm not over what I've been through. I've been through it and I'm on the other side of it. But sometimes I go back, you know?
Yeah. We never say we're recovered. We always say we're in recovery. And I think that's the beautiful knowing is that it's never done.
I think life is being in recovery.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's considered an addiction, every person on this planet is recovering or in recovery from something.
Mm-hmm.
And probably more than one thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's life.
Yeah.
Life leaves scars, but it makes you stronger.
It definitely does. So let's play a little game. I want to play a little game with you. And I want to mention that Jamie's also offering a month in the Big Ask Society. So thank you so much for that offering, giving people the opportunity to really see what it's about, see how they can be supported, and see if they want to go forward with it. So that's a beautiful share. I appreciate that. Definitely jump on that. We'll put that in the podcast notes so that you know how to connect with Jamie on every different way. All right, let's play some games. Yay. I like games.
Let's do it.
All right. So I'm going to throw out a word. I got to put on my old lady glasses to do this. And what I want you to do is come back with the first word that comes to mind. These are words I just wrote down from us chatting today, okay? Don't think too much about it. Here we go. Influencer.
Ooh, ambassador.
Marriage.
Trust.
Accountability.
Hope.
Diet.
Loaded.
I was just going to say loaded. That's so funny. I was thinking the same word.
Loaded.
Bookending.
Technique.
Shame.
Grace. It's an opposite, but it's the only response I have to it.
Oh, I love that. I'm going to end it on one word that we actually didn't talk about, but it's really an acronym. QVC.
Fun is the only word I can think of because I love my QVC job. I love it. I do. I sell Zuda, which is their athleisure brand. And throughout this pandemic, being able to sell clothing from my home studio and being able to build a TV business from my house has been the most fun thing. I sometimes have shows from 2 to 3 in the morning and I do them at the foot of our bed and my husband's snoring 3 feet away. And I sometimes think, what an odd world we live in that I'm on national television right now and he's literally in his boxer briefs snoring like 3 feet away. But you know what? It's what it is, and it's such a gift.
It is a gift. And we didn't really talk about that. And usually when I'm doing the rapid fire, it's towards the end of the interview. But I kind of want to circle back because you and I both have the QVC experience. I started like back in, I think, 2012, where the first product I had, I was the primary for Westinghouse solar lighting. By the way, didn't have a yard to put solar lights on. So I was always putting it on other people's yards, right? And my
Right.
backyard in my New York City apartment looked like Times Square. You could see it from space. So my
Sure.
thing is, moving into the space where the last couple of years we haven't been able to go to the studio. We've had to do it from home. Has that been a really different experience, like you just mentioned? I mean, what do you
Yeah,
like more?
the one thing, yeah. So we moved to Westchester, Pennsylvania, which
Yeah.
is where the QVC studio is during the pandemic. And then like 3 months later, they were like, "Hey, by the way, we're probably never having any of you come back into the studio. We're just gonna Skype is really working for us. So enjoy Skype." And I was like, "Well, that's funny because we just moved here." However, it was the happiest accident of my life. I love
Mm,
living here so much. We are so happy. We're just in the process of buying our house that we were renting. And I love it. The one thing that you miss from going into the studio is the friendships that you would make
yeah.
backstage. They were really fun. However, the opportunity to do TV from home, to be able to do an hour of live television and then go down and make my kids lunch is something I will never take for granted. And it is really a blessing. But more than that, the QVC community is so special. The women who watch at home
Mhm.
and now get to even have a little glimpse into our houses, and they feel like they're in our bedroom with us as we're just girl chatting about clothes. I think there's something very special about that. And I think that's why they're keeping it. It's kind of a fun way to do TV.
I agree with you on that. I do. I've noticed that. I mean, I miss being in the green room. I miss going to QVC studios and just having that feeling of walking into this mammoth place. I've never witnessed television like that
Yeah.
before, and having as much experience as I have in television, that was like a whole different beast. But there is a
Yeah.
beauty of being able to reclaim your time, know that you're all set up, and you can just sit down and have the conversation and connect with that person out there that's interested in what you're saying is really different. And you know what? Those relationships are there regardless, the ones that we've
Hmm.
made. But going back to that with QVC, you mentioned that, we talked earlier about branding and how do you want to just sell products for the rest of your life? So how do you differentiate what you're doing in the product lines that you're working with QVC to
Hmm.
integrate that into it not just being product sales?
Well, QVC is the easiest one of all because I'm
Mm,
selling activewear. And
mhm.
so I'm talking about active lifestyles. So there's no divergence there. I'm selling fabulous athleisure clothing styles that make women feel fabulous and enjoy working out. And maybe if somebody hasn't worked out in a long time, like some of the QVC viewers may be of an age where perhaps working out isn't as much a part of their everyday life, but maybe they get a fun pair of leggings and it just makes them feel inspired to go take a walk and get their steps in and feel a little more active. So there's really no divergence there. And to be clear, I have no problem representing healthy lifestyle brands. I love being a brand ambassador.
Mhm.
It's not the end all. It's just
Right.
part of what I do. And what is so important to me is to leave a legacy beyond toothpaste. It's just
Right.
very important to me that while I am helping people learn about brands, I'm also changing their lives.
Yeah, you and I are so on the same page with that. And I've been asked that question too, because, when I was originally doing the solar lighting, I don't know how I identified with that. The whole home and garden, okay, everybody's a home user or lives in a home. But when I moved into the health and wellness space, I'm like, now with anything that I represent, it's part of what I embody in my life. Whether
Yeah.
I'm actually using the product or not, knowing that this exists for somebody like me that could use it and find value in it, that's where the alignment is.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
love that. All right. So do you have any books? Are you a big book reader?
You know what? I wish I had time to read or even watch TV. I love it when people are like, "Did you binge watch that thing?" No. I can guarantee you I've watched nothing other than Peppa Pig in the last 10 years. I never turn on the TV except for my kids. And
Yeah.
we really
Yeah.
work like from 6 in the morning until 2 a.m., like just about every day. But again, I refuse to play in the Misery Olympics. I'm not complaining. I'm
Yeah.
grateful to have a job, to have actually 6 jobs, and I love every minute of it. But unfortunately, I don't have a tremendous amount of time to read outside books. I wish I did. I
Yeah.
interview a lot of authors on my podcast, so I do a lot of skimming.
Yeah. I get it. So what is your guilty pleasure?
podcasts in general, and not always educational or wellness podcasts. I love true crime podcasts and really investigative journalism podcasts.
Yeah.
So just good storytelling. I'm a big fan of Wondery podcasts and things that are very compelling that are serialized and that have a great narrative and a great story.
Love it. You know what we forgot to do? Oh my goodness. I'm so into this conversation with you. We have questions from those who listen to Holistically Speaking.
There you go.
Do you want to answer some questions?
Sure, let's do it.
Want to answer some questions? All right, let's do it. Just a couple questions came in. And the first one comes from Liz in Pennsylvania. Hey, neighbors. And she has a question about intermittent fasting. Many of my friends are doing this, and my body does not respond well to it, especially with all the workouts that I do. Is this a healthy approach to maintaining or losing weight? Intermittent fasting. What's your thoughts?
Okay. So again, with the caveat that I'm not a doctor, however, I've interviewed a lot of doctors about this. And what I can say is this. First of all, if you feel like some diet approach does not respond well with your body, then it's not the one for you, because everyone's body is different. But there is a but here. There is hard evidence that says that you should give your body about 12 hours to rest, your digestive system about 12 hours to rest in between your last feeding at night and your first feeding in the morning. That would simply mean that if you were to eat breakfast, I like to eat breakfast as soon as I get up at around 6:30 a.m. I close the kitchen. I have dinner a little early because I have kids. I close the kitchen by 6:30 p.m. if I'm going to eat breakfast at 6:30 a.m. I give my digestive system a good 12 hours to rest. And Dr. Amy Shaw, she is at Fasting MD. So she does talk about intermittent fasting, but she also just wrote a book called I'm So Effing Tired. And it has a lot to do with holistic wellness, sleep wellness, and a lot of things of that nature. So she's really talking about how your body can be optimized to work its best. And she gave us a lot of this data. So I do recommend to all of my big ask clients that you simply put a 12-hour window between your last feeding at night and your first feeding in the morning. So a lot of times you'll hear with intermittent fasting, like a 16-hour window, or more dramatic, an 18-hour window. That would never work for me. I have to eat before I work out. I like to eat in the morning. I like to wake up and get my metabolism going. I like to eat in the morning. However, that means I don't eat late at night.
Yeah. So it's kind of the 16 hours is their circadian rhythm kind of way of the approach.
But 12 hours is an adequate amount of time.
Absolutely.
12 hours is an adequate amount of time. So it's not technically any sort of like a crazy fast. It's just like you would eat dinner at a bit of an earlier time and you wouldn't snack after a certain hour.
Yeah, definitely. And it's bioindividuality, Liz. It's bioindividuality. It's something we learned at the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, that you have to do what works for you. What works for your friend is not necessarily going to be the best program for you or ideal lifestyle choice. So do what works for you, right?
You got it.
Yay, Liz. By the way, she's also a daily burner, so that's how she knows Jamie Hess.
Love it.
All right,
Love
Jessica.
it.
Jessica in Massachusetts. I live in a dorm. My roommates don't eat well. How do I avoid temptation? Good question.
Oh gosh, it's such a hard question. No, it's such a difficult question. First of all, there's another great term that I got from like recovery circles, and that is you may have heard about something called the Big Book, which is kind of like the Bible for people in 12-step recovery. And they always say, like, you might be the only example of the Big Book somebody sees today. What that means is you can be a walking, talking demonstration of recovery. And somebody might say, wow, I really like the way that looks on them. I'd like to try it on for myself. So by demonstrating good habits to other people, you can be very, very influential. You don't have to tell them they're wrong. You don't have to tell them to put down the chips, but you can look at it instead of trying to avoid temptation. Maybe try to look at it as, I would love to be this demonstration to others, as a walking, talking example of sticking to your guns and doing the right thing. You could be very, very influential. And just know, I just saw this really interesting article. It was a woman who was a hospice care worker. And they interviewed her because she had done a TikTok that went viral. And her TikTok was, these are the 4 things that people regret the most on their deathbed. And the number one thing was that they didn't value their health more, and they didn't appreciate their health more. So just because you're in college, and we all think we're invincible in college, just know you have a long, beautiful life with that body, but you only get one. So treat it right and then be an example to others.
That is so lovely to share that. Thank you for sharing that, Jamie. And Jessica, I hope that that resonated with you. It definitely resonated with me. And I'm not even in college anymore. Where was this when I was in college, right? You ever think about
Right?
we didn't have social media. We weren't online back then, but thinking about sharing space with someone, and that can be just even in your own home, right? You can be the one on the plan and wanting to change your dietary life, and you can have a very healthy spouse. And if you don't have that synergy between the two of you, even if one is doing one and the other, which for you and George, fortunately well, I don't know. I need to ask you this question. How's George's health in that area? Does he have the same wanting to go for the peanut butter or the almond butter?
No, he doesn't have the same issues with binge eating. However, we both love and pursue the passion of health and wellness. So he is a really wonderful partner to walk this journey with, but he does not struggle as much with the compulsion to binge. So he is a good accountability partner in his strength.
Yeah. Would you say he is your accountability partner?
Oh, he 100% is. And he's my identified accountability partner. And we have a knowing and an awareness and a communication about that.
That's beautiful. Beautiful. Shout out to George. And you guys just had a beautiful trip too. So you're sharing with Miraval. So
that's true.
At Miraval, and I got to check that place out. Definitely.
Big shout out to Miraval.
Unbelievable. Check that off the bucket list, right?
Totally. There's one in Arizona, one in Austin, and one in the Berkshires. So now the other two are on my bucket list.
I did not know there was one in the Berkshires. I did not know that.
It's new.
Good to know. All right. Final thoughts, Miss Jamie.
Final thoughts are just, look, no matter what it is in life, whether it's health and wellness, and weight loss, or just, getting further in your job or reaching out for your highest goals, ask for help. We were not designed to walk through this life alone. It's not how humans are even designed. But somehow with ego and pride, we often forget to ask for help. And somehow with the age of massive connectivity through the digital age, we've somehow become more disconnected. So get comfortable having uncomfortable conversations, tell people that you're not okay and that that's okay, and ask for help.
And speaking of asking for help, The Big Ask, don't forget, she's offering a free month for you to check out the Big Ask Society, part of the Big Ask method. Jamie Hess, you are a delight. I adore you. I really do.
Adore you back.
And I'm so happy that you were able to share this time with us. So thanks so much.
Thank you, doll.
I want you to join Jamie for 1 month. Give yourself that month in the Big Ask Society. It is totally free. And listen, I'm over there too, so it is a total win-win. The link is on the podcast page. Plus, you can connect with Jamie on NYC Fit Fam. That is her Instagram. I highly recommend you give her a follow. And if you need further support or you want to know how you can alter your thoughts, your moods, your habits that you are struggling with and hug it out with havening, let's set up a call. The link is also on the podcast page. And you can even head on over to hilaryrusso.com/havening and join me there. And let's get social. Join me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at Hilary Russo. I'm even on TikTok now at HIListically Speaking. Let's have some fun. And if you've enjoyed this conversation as much as I did, give it some love, leave a rating and a review wherever you are doing your listening, and pass it on to someone who you may think needs a little extra support, and help them on their wellness journey. HIListically Speaking is edited by David Seiss with music by Lipbone Redding and recorded on Squadcast. And on that note, take care of you. And as Jamie said, if you need help, just ask. Actually, make it a big ask, because we're in this together. And as always, be kind to your mind and don't forget to laugh.